Hi everyone, you are watching the pilot episode of The Tennis Inspector, and these days I'm in New York City. Today I'm hosting a guest who competed on major tournaments and played against top tennis players, including Roger Federer. He beat top 10 tennis player John Isner, and he stands for changes in tennis. Please welcome Noah Rubin.
My father lost a lot of jobs for traveling with me, but if you're getting down to it like that, you're pushing off your leg, that's where all the power is coming from. To get from 500 to top 150 or top 200 is very difficult. It really is.
What is it like to share the same court with Roger?
The only way to really change that is maybe to not have a prize money structure. This is why you had to go to school. You had to prove to yourself that you were good enough or not, and if you're not, at least you're in school and you can get better. Djokovic, you have Felix Auger that are doing open stands on the backhand now, and that's the new level of tennis. You're playing everybody who was top in the world as a junior, now all coming together. So we're all used to winning. And I look over to my dad and I'm like, I can't breathe. I think we need more team atmosphere. I think it's very tough to get behind a single person. Their lowest level of tennis doesn't drop below a certain level. So if there's a hurricane and there's flying pigs around, Djokovic will still play pretty good tennis. It's remarkable to see the changes and breaking the stigma of mental health and talking about your feelings, and it's really important nowadays. As a professional, you forget to have fun, and right before the pandemic, I changed my mentality. It's everything, it's my life, it's where I feel at home.
Hi Noah, let's suppose that we just met each other, and yeah, nice to meet you, and thank you so much for devoting some time.
Thank you for having me.
For those who don't know who you are, can you just tell how you get into tennis?
My grandfather's from Queens, New York, and he crossed these tennis courts one day, and he's like, I have to learn how to play that sport.
Okay.
And so he read books about it, he taught himself, then he taught my father, and then my father taught my sister and I, and she loved it, she was good, but wanted to do it more as, a fun recreational thing, and she played competitively. But I had this dream to play professional tennis since I was very, very young, so here we are.
Your father's a banker and your mother works in education. So, I mean, they don't have anything with sport, right?
Yeah, actually, my dad just got back into teaching tennis. He was sick of banking, so he's back into teaching tennis now, which is really great, because he didn't want to be in a suit anymore, and he coached me my whole life. But no, none of them prior to coaching me, nothing in tennis.
Sometimes it is tough, right? When your parents are not from sports and you don't have much knowledge about this particular sport, right? And in tennis, you need to learn a lot, like what shoes to choose. I mean, I mean, I commend my father. I mean, he did an incredible job of making sure I worked hard, making sure that he was knowledgeable, and he brought people around that knew. But also, he didn't put that much pressure on me. The pressure was only there if I had a bad attitude, and I didn't try. That's right.
If I lose 6-0, 6-0 and those things, and I tried, then it doesn't matter. So it was pretty impressive that even for somebody that wasn't really in the sport, that he knew that having fun was first and foremost.
And what age you started playing tennis?
I have a picture of me, I was about 1.5 years old, diaper, hitting a ball hung from a string in my house.
This is the first time when you touched the tennis ball.
So I have a video when I was almost 2 years old, not quite 2 years old yet. And I got like 3 hits in a row. I was pretty good back then, a little hand-eye coordination. So
you grew up in New York, right?
Yep.
And where did you start playing tennis?
Well, I started really young. I mean, we started in different places in Freeport Racquet Club. I started in Carefree as well. But then I was 7, 8 years old, and my father learned about Lawrence Klager in New York. And that was when we basically joined forces. My dad and Lawrence coached me basically for my whole junior career, and my dad always helps me still, and now I'm actually back with Lawrence. I mean, we took some time apart, and he's helping me again.
New York is the toughest place to start playing tennis because courts are very expensive, time is limited, and the weather conditions are not that good as like in California or Florida.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I got a lot of crap because, you can't play outside year-round. It never really affected me. I was pretty good at acclimating to outdoors, and there was more than enough tournaments inside at the time too, but very expensive. I mean, my parents did not come from a lot of wealth. My mom worked at the tennis camp, so we get time for free. my dad coached us, so there was a lot of sacrifice. My father lost a lot of jobs for traveling with me, so I owe them a lot for my career.
I just wanted to discuss with you some technical aspects of tennis, and
Yes.
I'm very interested in the stance that you use. Obviously, there are two types of stance: the open stance and the closed stance. Can you explain what's the difference between two of those, and which one you use and when?
Yeah, you know, actually a lot of it nowadays, I almost think there's a third as well, which is neutral. So for an open stance, it's basically when you are facing the net, when your body is parallel to the net, and you're basically facing it. So that allows you to push off, usually on the forehand, your dominant leg, or on the backhand, a non-dominant for a righty. And then a closed stance is when you have enough time, you're either moving into the court, or you just have enough time to actually develop the shot a little more. And that's where you put, you know, if I'm a righty, your non-dominant foot actually goes in front, even a little bit further to the right than your dominant foot. So, but for me, a lot of guys that I'm seeing nowadays, especially when they're moving forward, is a neutral stance. And that's basically when your feet are parallel to each other, they're in the same direction. And that's a lot of where the shots lie nowadays.
At this neutral stance, you have more time to prepare yourself and to hit the ball in front, or?
Yeah, it's actually, neutral kind of gives you the balance between the open and closed stance. For an open stance, you could be late. You could actually, you need less time on the open stance. The closed stance, because on open, you're here. You're already prepared. If you're looking at the net, you're already there. For a closed stance, you need one extra step. So you actually need more time with the ball. So actually, a lot of the shots that people are hitting nowadays are open because you're going side to side, especially in the men. You're loading up on both sides here and there. But for me, because of my speed as well, most of my backhands will be closed stands, and most of my, my forehands will be open to neutral.
And when you hit the ball in an open stance, how can you produce the power?
The power comes directly from loading. Like if you're hitting a forehand, you're a righty, it is loading on your dominant foot. So it's how much time do you have to produce. If you're just here, your full body is up, you can't really get out of the ball. But if you're getting down to it like that, you're pushing off your leg, that's where all the power is coming from. It's coiling from here and coming out of it.
Let's talk a little bit about your junior career. You are a Wimbledon champion, junior Wimbledon champion, USTA junior championship champion. You've been number 6 in ITF and number 1 in the US. Does this create a lot of pressure on you while you transfer to professional tour, or it adds some confidence?
Yeah, I mean, it started from confidence. You know, for me, I chose a different route than a lot of guys that won slams at the time chose. I chose to go to school. So almost at that time, people forgot about me. So like, oh, he's going to college, we can forget about him, we don't have to worry. So actually, I think there was pressure to decide what to do, but then once I chose the path of school, it didn't really matter. People forgot about me and just said, okay, we'll wait and see if he turns pro eventually, but right now we don't have to worry about it.
What would be your advice to top 20 junior player in order what he or she need to consider while transitioning to professional tour?
You know, everybody's a good player, and there are still, top 20 players that have made it to 400 ATP. But when you play with no pressure, it's a different kind of tennis. It really is. So a lot of the kids that are like, I'm ready to go pro, I'm 500 in the world, to get from 500 to top 150 or top 200 is very difficult. It really is. So a lot of people that are confident in their games, I would tell them, go to school for a year. See what it's like. Are you better than these kids? If you are better than all the kids in college, then you can take the next step. But I know many kids that last second went to school when they were deciding to go pro, and they're playing 5th or 6th on the lineup and, not winning all their matches. And I'm like, this is why you had to go to school. You had to prove to yourself that you were good enough or not. And if you're not, at least you're in school and you can get better. And I think a lot of kids have to just slow it down and understand that it's a long journey ahead.
Even for those who play in other countries,
I mean, there's a lot of, colleges are looking for basically anybody from any country. It doesn't really matter where you're from. I think it's a great thing for people to be a part of. You can get things where you get free education and free board. I mean, there's a lot of good things that can come from it. I think it's something that people should be considering.
You are one of the few tennis players who are advocating changes in tennis. I want to discuss the prize money gap between first top 100 and players out of the top 100. Obviously, there is a gap.
A little bit.
But do you think that there is anything can be done? And is there anything that ATP is doing to improve it?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely trying to push that at least, if you get into qualifying of slams, that they're doubling that prize money. You know, it used to be $3,000 for losing first round qualies. Now it's $13,000. So that at least know that you get $55,000, let's say, around if you get into every Grand Slam qualifier. But that's very difficult. I mean, to say that, you know, that's only 250 players, and still after 50 grand, that's not that much money.
Yeah.
You know, looking at the numbers, and I have a friend that does a lot of the graphs and does a lot of these numbers. You know, it really seems that too much. I mean, it's so top heavy that the only way to really change that is maybe to not have a prize money structure. You know, do something completely different. Have, you know, prize money only be a bonus, but to have salaries throughout the year.
Does ATP consider this change, or I mean,
there's too many things going on. I think I was worried at the beginning of Corona that we were going to not be able to evolve the sport of tennis during this time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we have. We've been super reactive about everything that's been going on. You know, we're trying to fix the changes of the US Open, fix the changes in everything happening, but we haven't really changed anything from the foundation of the sport.
Yeah.
So I think we're not in a really good place right now, and it shows.
It is obvious that when you start playing professional tour, you need to deal with pressure and losses, and mentally it is difficult.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation, and what is your approach, you know, to how you deal with stress and pressure?
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of the problems we're dealing with in tennis right now, where, you know, people like me that have been a part of the tour, even people 5-10 years older than me, should be allowed to talk to the younger generation, mm-hmm. because they don't really know what it means to be a professional tennis player. I didn't know what it meant. I mean, you're playing everybody who was top in the world as a junior, now all coming together.
Yeah.
So we're all used to winning. We're used to, I won almost every week, you know, yeah. Whether I semi or final, I was winning a lot of matches. And I think once you get into the pros, you're dealing with not only more losses almost every week and consistently, mm-hmm. Now you're dealing with financial loss. Now you're dealing with all these other things. So you have to really find what you love about the sport and remind yourself and get to a place where you know what makes you happy every tournament. You know what you have to do to take some smiles away, regardless of how the tournament goes.
Yeah. What are the other difficulties you see in sport of tennis, apart from the gap in prize money?
Well, the gap in prize money, I mean, you know, it's one thing to have the percentages be off, but there's just not enough money made in tennis right now. Mm-hmm. I think tennis is not TV friendly. It's not fan friendly. If there was an 8-year-old kid over there, yeah, he doesn't want to watch tennis for 3 hours. Yeah. You know, there's too much going on, especially 4 hours at the US Open was so long. We don't get the next generation into the sport. I think that's one of the issues. We have to change the scoring. We have to change the outcome of everything to make it more appealing for ESPN, for the 10-year-old kid that wants to get into it.
Bartek Maratagu is one of the people, who is doing some changes in sport, especially, launching this Ultimate Tennis. Mm-hmm. Can you think about any other, ways to make it more entertaining? How to bring new people?
For me, I mean, you just look at so many issues with tennis, and I think we need more team atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I think it's very tough to get behind a single person. People like getting behind a team. They like rooting for a team. So I think having team sports and team events lead into Grand Slams, I think could be really beneficial. When I'm looking at it, we have to have more events during the weekend and after hours of business. I mean, things like that, they have to be shorter and quicker. And I just think there's so many things. We need jerseys, we need DJs and food and drinks. We need all of that going together. We need fans going crazy in between points. It's just not there yet, and we have to fix that.
Are there any movements in this? I mean, do you think that?
I mean, you have World Team Tennis. You have, a lot of the other ones now. Obviously, Laver Cup. Obviously, it's tricky because right now in Corona, you can't have fans. A lot of these tournaments, mm-hmm. But I think it's a lot of stuff that we have to try doing in the next few months.
You played college tennis at mm-hmm. Wake Forest University, North Carolina, and a part of your schedule was playing pro tournaments, as you mentioned before, right? First of all, how did you get into Wake Forest and why you choose this university?
Yeah, I actually had a few people I knew from when I was working with Lawrence that went to Wake Forest, and the head coach at the time, the head coach when I was there was actually the assistant coach at UVA. Mm-hmm. So I had guys that went to Wake and played against who is now Tony Bruschi, and said that Tony was a great coach and you should definitely trust him. So now he went to Wake Forest. So I had the school, a small school that I liked, that I felt was, going to do right by me. And then I had the coach there that people were telling me was a really good coach. So, not only were people shocked that I went to school,
Mhm.
but they were definitely shocked that I chose Wake Forest.
Okay.
You know, at the time when I committed, I think they were 33 in the country at the time.
Mhm.
And for somebody who's basically top 5 in the world, #1 in the US, to not pick even a top 10 school, not even a top 30 school, I think that was strange for a lot of people.
Mhm.
But, you know, after my year was done, we were top 10. And then the next year after that, we were #1 in the country. So
Whoa.
I think it was a pretty good step up, and I'm
It
happy
is,
to help
absolutely.
them out.
I know that not many American players consider professional sport. They go to the university, even like you,
Yeah.
who was a top player in the juniors. Why you choose to pursue this goal to study and play college tennis, or it was planned in advance that you're gonna get a year off?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was one of the first players to get this contract that if you played a full year
Mhm.
at Wake Forest, you get 4 years for free after you're done.
Oh, only 4, right?
What?
Only 4 years.
No, +4. So
plus 4.
5 total.
Okay.
So for me, and being somebody that was nervous about putting all his eggs in one basket, what if you get injured?
Mhm.
You know, I heard tennis has some issues, and how do I give that up? You know, that's a lot of money and that's a safety net for me to say, if the first month into tennis, if I break my ankle and I can never play tennis again, I can go back to school.
Yeah.
So I think that safety net for me was a big, big thing. And I think it was, you know, pretty incredible that I got that opportunity, so I couldn't pass it up.
Yeah, I think that's smart. What's the most memorable thing from college tennis?
Yeah, it was the finals, I believe, at ACCs, and it was a really great match. It was one of the most fun atmospheres I played in, and I beat, actually, the guy I lost to in the finals in the series. I beat him. Then Romain Bogarts, our #2, beat Colin Altamirano, their #2, and we were battling, and we didn't get to beat UVA during my year, but they beat them the years after. And that was just a lot of fun. I remember screaming and getting everybody into it, and it was a lot of fun.
Do you think that college tennis increases your chances to go pros, or no? That's
It's tough to say. It's tough to say. I mean, you know, you have to really figure out who you are as a person, because there are some Americans and some other, you know, Europeans as well that they just love partying, let's say,
Yeah.
and then they get lost in college.
Yeah.
They kind of don't have the motivation, because you have to be self-motivated. If you don't want to practice, nobody's going to force you to practice. So, you know, you don't want to go to class, you're going to get kicked out of school, and nobody's going to force you. So,
Yeah.
you know, they help you along the way a little bit, but if you're not motivated to do it yourself, it gets tricky. It really does. So, yeah, I think a lot of people become better tennis players in school, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to figure out who you are as a person.
Imagine top 20 junior tennis player
Yeah.
who is in considerations whether to go playing pro tour or going into college. So what would be your recommendation, and like what you need to look at to consider the best?
I mean, 95% of the time, I want them to go to school
Mhm.
for at least a year.
A year.
Yeah, go to school, see if you're better than these guys. If you can't play the spring and, you know, go maybe, let's say, if you can't win 95% of your matches, 96%, I don't think you're ready. You're not ready yet. So, you know, it gets difficult. A lot of tennis players are arrogant. They're like, I'm ready for this. I got this. And I'm like, I don't know. You know, I don't know if you have this. Like, why take the risk when you can possibly get a free education and play for 1 year?
Yep.
And then if you're ready, that's it. And you're still young. You're 19 at that point. You still have 16, 17 more years to play tennis. It's a long time, guys.
A lot of universities are open for such options, right? They
Yeah.
allow their students to play for 1 year and get back to the education after.
There are some you have to be obviously at a certain caliber, but you know, there's different degrees out
Yeah.
there, and even if you don't get that, and you don't, at least you get free practice, you get all of this. So there's a lot of good that could come from it.
So do you think that these days the speed of the game increased dramatically, and the majority of tennis players had to switch from closed stance to the open stance?
Yes.
And
Yeah, no, I think, you know, if we watch, especially now, we're watching a lot of highlights of some of the older matches, you can see that they hit the ball, a lot of the guys get time, they can just go through it, they're in closed or
Right.
neutral stands.
Yeah.
But now you have Del Potro going 180-mile-per-hour balls at you. You don't have always the time to close, so that's why you have to get there in the loading position, your open stance, and you can produce. But a lot of the guys back in the day couldn't do that as well.
Yeah.
A lot of the players now are very good of controlling their body with an open stance.
Since turning pro in 2015, you won 4 challenger titles, right?
Yeah.
And you've been number 125 in the world.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell what was the toughest moment since you turned pro?
There's probably 2. One of them was when I was 125 in the world, actually.
Yeah.
And so I had a really great summer. I had my first top 10 win against Isner.
In Washington, right?
In Washington.
Oh my goodness. Well, that was extraordinary. No one saw that coming. And definitely not Isner, because he turned his back.
Threw in the pirouette as well.
And after I beat Yuzny, I was playing good tennis, but then I lost like second or quarters of a challenger. And I'm just like, nothing changes. You know, I don't feel different. Yeah, I made more money this summer, but overall, like, I was still grinding away. I didn't feel like I broke through. And that's when I was really looking at myself and I was like, wow, this is real. I mean, this is really difficult. There's like it didn't get better when I was top 150. It didn't get better when I was top 130. So I was like, when does it get easier? When can you have a second to breathe? And, you know, January comes around and I already have a challenger title to defend once I was 125. And then just like that, the points go away. And that was a really tough moment for me. And then the second one was one of my longest losing streaks. And I was in Marbella, Spain. And I lost, it was one of the toughest challenger entries because I was right around 200 in the world and I was in qualies. And I lost first round qualies at 10 p.m. at night in Marbella, Spain. And I'm just here hysterical crying by myself at this really nice country club, but just hysterical crying. And I'm like, wow, I mean, this is really just a grueling sport. Yeah. I feel like I work my butt off. I feel like I do everything I can. But the sport, you know, and it's bad to say that you expect something back, but you do at a certain point. You want some stability. You want something there, and it just wasn't there for me. And, you know, I had some pretty good momentum after, but it's, yeah, that was difficult.
The first US Open you played against
Delbonis, yeah.
Right? I remember that you said...
the most nervous I've ever been for a tennis match. Yeah.
Somewhere you mentioned that you've been very nervous at this point. And
oh my God, that was... I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
It was like... It was like 3-1 in the first set.
Okay.
And I look over to my dad and I'm like, I can't breathe. Well, like a panic attack almost. That was the first time. Here I am as a young kid, I'm 18, playing 20 minutes away from my house at the biggest tournament in the world, in main draw. I'm just like, what do I do? And by the time the third set came around, I was ready to pass out. And I was like, just get me off this court, get me off this court. So since then, I can't remember being that nervous, but that was really bad.
You believe that the level of game that you had at this time when you played the US Open against Delbonis is not enough to compete on this level?
No. I knew at that point, whether it was mental growth and physical growth, and then just my style of tennis, I had a few years to get there. You know, while he's just hitting the ball to me, it's fine. You know, I knew I can compete with him. The power was similar, but it was just consistency, mental consistency, and just making sure that every point I was in there ready to fight. That took some time.
You touched the mental topic. I mean, how different junior tennis from professional to mentally?
It's a different world. I mean, again, you're not winning all the time. Most of the junior players that go pro, they win all the time in juniors. I mean, you know, if you lose in the semifinals, it was like a bad tournament. Now, if you get to the semis, you're like, oh, thank God, like I did something. So mentally, to come in, day out, every challenger, playing really good guys. I mean, in the past 5 years, it's even exploded more, where first round challengers are extremely tough.
Yeah.
So it's not like you get any easy first rounds anymore. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you can produce good shots in an open stance, would you go for it? I mean, would you
I mean, you know, the biggest problem with open stance is moving forward. Yeah. It doesn't always allow you. When you're neutral or closed, you can go through the ball more. Yeah. In the open stance, you can produce, but the weight's not always going this way, so that becomes tricky. But you have a lot of guys nowadays, I mean, Djokovic, you have Felix Auger that are doing open stance on the backhand now, and that's the new level of tennis. Yeah. That's sliding out with their non-dominant leg, hitting a backhand. Yeah. it's one of the toughest shots in tennis right now. So, I mean, it's pretty crazy to see how quick the balls are coming, and now we're getting to a point where it's just sometimes too quick to always hit close stance.
But it also requires a lot of physical power, right, to produce good shots in the open stance.
Yes.
I know some players, they switch from close stance to the open stance. Do you know some exercises or maybe just limitations on how you can switch to this and how you can?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different drills that I would go. One would be either feeding or live ball, coming from a cross-court angle with recovering back to the center. So this way you're recovering back, you're sidestepping, you're planting on the outside foot. So that's not only developing this open stance on the back end, then you go out to the forehand, you plant, hit the ball, sidestep, plant with the left, and you go back, crossover. And this is really developing the open stance shot. I think another one that will develop open stance to close stance, Spanish love this, I believe it's called the Spanish X drill, and it's a feeding. So you go back for a ball, and then you go short diagonal. Yeah. And then you go back for a backhand, then short forehand. Deep forehand, short backhand, deep backhand, short forehand. Yeah. And this allows you, when you're moving up to the ball, it allows you to close off and neutralize your position. And that allows for the momentum to be going forward, which you can't always do with an open stance.
You're going to produce the power by
med
following
ball
through, right?
Medicine ball is really great for that. Even if you're facing there, you can do all different directions, but the fact that you're loading up, you're getting the power from the quads, you're pushing off, you get the med ball here, and you're exploding out, and you go back. You can do it with a partner and just go cross court to cross court. Super helpful.
In one of the interviews you said that your idols growing up were Lleyton Hewitt, James Blake, and Roger Federer. Well, obviously when you started playing Pro Tour, Lleyton and James retired already. But you have a great opportunity to play against Roger Federer at the Australian Open. So what is it like to share the same court with Roger?
Yeah, I mean, I played with most of the other greats before. During this generation, I played with Nadal, Murray, Djokovic, Wawrinka. Played with all of them, but I never stepped on the court with Federer until I played him at Australian Open. So very strange. It almost looked, when he was doing his hair, waiting for the coin toss, it almost looked like I was watching it on TV or something. And it was very weird, but you know, I'm a New Yorker, and once I step on the court and we start hitting, I'm like, I'm gonna kick his ass. Like, I'm gonna do this. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it was immediate. It was after I got past the coin toss and the warm-up, I was ready to go. Whoa. So it took some time in the beginning to get past Roger, and then obviously a jam-packed Rod Laver Arena, 15,000 people, very cool. But then after that, I was ready to go, played some good tennis, had a couple set points in the third set. Disappointed I didn't get them because I would have loved to go to a fourth set, but this is where we are.
If you would play against Roger Federer now, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I almost had another chance. I qualified for Wimbledon this year, last year, and then I was up a set and a break in the first round of main draw, and I was going to play him second round. I wish I could have got that chance, but yeah, I think it's just, he makes you play bigger than you want to. He makes you go for shots that you don't want to go for, so it's about playing within yourself and knowing that you can compete with him. Like, let him do Roger Federer things, but don't beat yourself down.
What do you think differentiates top three players, Roger Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, from all other players?
Just two things. One, their lowest level of tennis doesn't drop below a certain level. So if there's a hurricane and there's flying pigs around, Djokovic will still play pretty good tennis. While something like that may affect me to a point where I can't hit a tennis ball. So that's one thing, that no matter the conditions, their baseline of tennis is very high. It's very high.
It's high and it's similar. Consistent.
And then the second thing is when pressure situations come, they play their best tennis.
A couple of weeks ago, you had a phone call with ATP, and you've been discussing the upcoming US Open event. And for those who don't know, can you tell what's the agenda and what were the results of this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a phone call with 400 players, the US Open, the ATP. And basically we were talking about, you know, the changes in tennis and how we have to acclimate and, you know, what we're going to do with points and tournaments. And then the US Open spoke about what they're planning on doing with their tournament. It was interesting. I think there was a lot of difference from the top players that were on the call to the bottom players, and, you know, a lot of insensitivity, a lot of issues that I was seeing. And it kind of proved to me that there's a lot of disorganization going on, and we have a long way to go. And, you know, I talk about it being a lost cause, and I just think there's a lot of issues that I don't know if tennis can overcome.
I think there are different objectives. I mean, top players were talking about, you know, bringing one more team member into the US Open event and you've been thinking about completely different things. Like, are you gonna participate in this event? And if it's gonna happen, are there gonna be any qualifyings? If not,
Yeah, we're talking about different things. The top players are like, I need 3 guys on my team to stretch me out, and then I have guys that are 100 spots lower than me. Not even sure if there's going to be futures or challengers for the rest of the year. They might not get a paycheck.
Right.
So we're looking at that. I'm like, this is what we're talking about in tennis, and I don't know, insurmountable at times to think about.
If there's not going to be any qualies, there's going to be a huge gap created by, the
points. Yeah,
right?
the point gap.
Do they consider this, or
they do? They're thinking about maybe, the U.S. Open is the only one that's really considered about, helping out the guys in qualies. They're thinking about giving them a check for not coming to the Open, also putting challengers on the schedule. So there's a lot of talk there.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. No one from the big 3 participated in this call, right?
No, very. It was disappointing. Obviously, Djokovic is the president. Then you have Federer and Nadal, who were chosen as the at-large people for the player council. So, we had a few others like Pospisil there, but to not have the big names and have them, seeing them on other platforms, it was a little disappointing.
We saw like an Instagram account that Djokovic was promoting his Adria tour tournaments, and he didn't find any time to participate in this call. That's really strange.
It's tough. They've obviously done a lot for tennis, and I get that. But when you put yourself in the position that you're telling me that you want to fight for me,
yeah,
and then it seems like a lot of the top players are only fighting for themselves, it gets tricky.
In one of the interviews, you mentioned that the goal is to have no goals. Anything can happen so quickly. It's just about having the mindset of being open and ready for anything. Can you expand on this, and what did you mean by that?
Yeah, when I had that toughest moment in my career in Spain, I actually went down to a future for the first time in 5 years. Didn't win the future, finaled it, then played a challenger, and I was out of qualifying. I had to win 3 rounds in a challenger to make it into qualifying the French Open, and so much pressure. And then, boom, just like that, I win the tournament, beating Christian Garin, Dennis Kudla, Hugo Deli, and good players. And like that, again, it's a main draw of the French Open, get the wild card, play Isner or lose, but then, qualified Atlanta, win a round, got a wild card DC, win 2 rounds. Just like that, doors open.
Yeah.
So you never know. With tennis, it can happen so quickly. It's just about being positive throughout the whole time.
Staying positive and accept all the losses, wins, and
it's
everything
tough,
what's going on.
You have to be honest with yourself and say, hey, this is what I'm doing wrong, but I can improve upon this.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have some goals, right, for the upcoming season. Hopefully it's going to be,
you don't know. Right now I'm just trying to improve and get better and feel good on court. But yeah, no goals. I really don't. I just want to enjoy myself, I think. We forget to do that as a professional. You forget to have fun. And, right before the pandemic, I changed my mentality. I was just having fun, and my results showed. I played some good tennis, beat some good players that I haven't been before, like Istomin, Lorenzi, Pui, and that just proved to me that you can have fun and be a professional tennis player.
Yeah. You have an Instagram account called Behind the Racquet.
Yes.
Just can you tell about this initiative and what are your goals and what you do here?
Yeah, Behind the Racquet is giving players a platform to share their story. Players from top in the world to 400 in the world, I've gotten players on, and allows them to, share their story in a safe place where they know that I'm giving them the opportunity, where a lot of positive reinforcement can come from it. So, a lot of interviews, they talk about the same things, but I wanted people to really get to know the players they see every day. So it takes a lot, and a lot of players are now opening up for the first time, but it's remarkable to see the changes and breaking the stigma of mental health and talking about your feelings. And, it's really important nowadays. So that's why I built it.
And how do you convince people, to talk about such intimate and sometimes, mentally difficult?
Yeah, I'm a tennis player. I'm not media, so they feel comfortable with that. I give them final say in everything that goes out there. But beyond that, they see me opening up every day. They see me during the interview with them. I tell them things about myself and try to open up and just keep the conversation going. And I think they feel safe. They feel like this is a great place to start, and I think they feel that it has to start somewhere.
Yeah. That's a great initiative, and
thank you.
Fully support you, and I'm subscribed to Behind the Racquet.
Thank you so much.
I think it gives a lot to tennis, and you're one of those people who initiate those changes. forehand or backhand?
Backhand line.
Ideal vacation?
Ooh, experience like Thailand or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite
Less beach.
Favorite food?
Ooh, like a Brazilian steakhouse.
Best city in the world?
Best city in the world. Paris was always one of my favorites from an early kid.
Favorite Grand Slam?
Australian Open.
Most memorable match?
Most memorable match was either Roger Federer or Benoit Paire.
Benoit Paire?
Yeah, first round Australian Open.
5 sets?
Yeah, 6. I beat him 7-6, 7-6, 7-6.
Whoa,
Yeah,
tough.
tough match. It was a lot of fun. First round, that was my first Grand Slam win.
3 best tennis players of all times?
Oh, stop this.
Either WTA or ATP, whatever.
I can't.
Even all generation, I mean.
All generation, Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer. I just think
Yeah.
these are the best tennis players we've ever seen.
Yeah. How to beat Roger Federer?
He has an off day.
Okay. And the final one, what does tennis mean to you?
It's everything. It's my life. It's where I feel at home.
So Noah, you brought the Behind the Racket label
Yes.
hat, right?
Yes, limited edition.
With your signature, right?
Yeah, my signature right here. And actually, this is the family and friends one.
Okay.
Because it has a 0 out of 33.
Whoa.
The people that bought them has a 1 out of 33 on it. This is a 0. So it's a very special one.
Very limited.
Yes,
Very limited.
yes.
So guys, if you want to win this hat, what you need to do is to comment down this video below. What changes do you see in tennis and what tennis would you like to see in the future? The most creative one and the most interesting one gonna get this hat from Noah Rubin.
Right there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
That was very fun.
That was great.